name is Rose Jeffrey. I'm the Corporate Secretary for Harlem Development Corporation. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. The position of Chairperson of the Board of Directors is currently vacant. Robert's Rules of Order state that in the absence of a chairman or vice president, it is the duty of the Secretary to call the meeting to order and to preside until the election of a chairman pro tem. I now call to order this meeting of the Directors of the Harlem Community Development Corporation for Friday, September 8th, 2017. It is proposed that the Directors elect Frida Foster as Chairperson pro tem for the purpose of chairing today's meeting. Is there any objection to Ms. Foster serving as Chairperson pro tem? Hearing no objection to Frida Foster serving as Chairperson pro tem, Frida Foster will serve as Chairperson pro tem. I will now turn the meeting over to Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all very much. I'm honored to serve as chair for this September 8, 2017 meeting of the Harlem Community Development Corporation. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, Empire State Development, we welcome public comment on the items on the agenda. After each item is presented and any comments are received from the directors, we will allow members of the public to provide comments. All comments should be limited to 2 minutes and should only address the item that is under consideration. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has a potential conflict of interest with respect to the items on today's agenda.
I do, with regard to the weatherization program.
Okay.
It's a program that is funded by Homes and Community Renewal, so I will be abstaining.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Anyone else? All right. If you come to realize closer to time of voting, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at the time when we will then be sure that you recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such items or items. The foregoing has been noted. Mr. Watson's recusal. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of June 23rd, 2017. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. You? Second? Did I hear a second over there? Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I abstained because I wasn't here.
Okay.
I just a couple of new faces. Can I know who's in the room?
Absolutely. Okay, why don't we all go around and introduce ourselves? We'll start with...
I'm Eunice Jackson from Empire State Development.
I'm Greg Watson from New York State Homes and Community Renewal, representing Commissioner Ruth Ann in this office.
I'm Holly Drakeford. I'm on the Board of Trustees.
I'm Dana Reed. I'm a trustee.
Melinda Velez from the Speaker's Office.
Nicole Migliore from Daniel O'Donnell's office.
Peter Dean, designee for the New York State Department of Financial Services, Superintendent Maria Pullo.
Ana Batista with Congressman Adriano Espaillat.
Carcina Georgia with State Senator Brian Benjamin.
LaShawn Henry, Representative Robert Rodriguez.
Councilmember Bill Perkins. I'm Lamont Mays, representing New York State Assemblymember Inez Dickens.
I'm Arbor Rice, and I'm representing Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer.
Maria Teresa Arce, and I'm a community member as a Harlem resident.
Curtis Archer, Empire State Development Corporation.
Thank you. Do we want to leave around the room?
Yeah. No.
Too late. It's too late.
Open Norris, Executive Vice President of all community.
We've met our secretary and
Linda Wood Guy, Councilman Bill Perkins.
Thank you. I will now ask Mr. Archer to present the request for approval for Harlem CDC's amended weatherization division budget for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The final 2017-18 federal allocations to HCR for the Weatherization Assistance Program, otherwise known as WAP, were higher than anticipated, and the sub-grantee allocations have been revised. Originally, the original allocation was $969,750. That was the original federal allocation. It has been increased by a $164,191 additional amount. The copy of the budget you received via UPS does not include one little section called Environmental Review section. I have copies of it, which I can actually distribute, but just note that it's not a substantial change at all. It was just an increase of that particular section that is being presented this morning. The ACDC's federal allocation, like I said, increased by $164,191, making the total federal allocation to the program of $1,133,941. Yes.
The new budget is because there was an earlier increase of 30.
Well, I didn't put that because we were only, remember, I was specific in saying the federal allocation. That's why. We can actually get into the total budget amount, but the federal allocation was increased, not the that $30,000 that you mentioned. That was earned income.
And that was already approved
right.
in the last meeting.
So, HCDC was required to submit a revised budget to HCR for approval and is now awaiting that approval.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second? A second. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The Director Archer, will present a request for a grant of up to $125,000 to the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce for the Harlem Havana Music and Cultural Festival.
Once again, good morning. You are being requested to authorize the corporation to provide a grant of up to $125,000 from the Community and Economic Revitalization Support Program, also known as SERVS, to the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce to fund a portion of expenses in connection with the Harlem Havana Music and Cultural Festival. Over its 120-year history, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce has provided services to the Upper Manhattan area and has co-sponsored some of the most important development projects in Upper Manhattan. Last year, Harlem CDC co-sponsored the Chamber in launching the annual Harlem Havana Music and Cultural Festival, an international visual and performing arts, fashion, education, and culinary exchange that celebrates the artistic connection between Harlem, New York, and Havana, Cuba. The festival is scheduled during Harlem Week and is part of a greater cultural and educational exchange initiative led by former Congressman Charles Rangel, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with U.S. Representative Gregory Meeks and Cuban Deputy Minister of Culture Fernando Rojas. SERVS funds will be used for expenses incurred related to the promotion and operation of the festival. Promotional expenses included graphic design and printing of stage and site promotional banners and Harlem Havana calendars of events. This festival has bolstered economic activity at participating venues, including Jenny's Supper Club, the National Jazz Museum that extended to surrounding local restaurants, bars, cultural institutions, street vendors, and other businesses. In its first year, Harlem Havana and the influx of Cuban entertainers increased attendance at Harlem Week by close to 300,000 people. The total budget for the project is $500,000. Harlem CDC's grant of $125,000 is 25% of the total budget for the event, and it is recommended that the directors find the proposed funding is an eligible activity in accordance with Harlem CDC's mission and authorize a grant of up to $125,000 for the purposes of and substantially on the terms and conditions set forth in these materials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Questions? Yes.
Last year, the budget for the total program was $200,000. This year, it's $500,000. So it's like 2.5 times more than last year's budget. So I was wondering what additional things are happening, or?
No, I'm sorry.
So, I'm sorry, last year the entire program budget was $800,000. This year it's $500,000 because there are things from last year that difference are the things that carried over to this year from last year. So it's actually, the overall budget is less. We approved $200,000 as our contribution, but the overall amount is less.
So the carryover that mitigates the increase, what are those?
Those were things that were purchased, like equipment, like that was sustainable equipment that they're using, yeah.
So, okay, so what kind of sustainable equipment, for instance?
I can't tell you exactly.
Good to know, because if it's sustainable once, it may be sustainable for the next 24 months. It gives us a sense of, the longevity of that sustainability as a budget impact.
We can provide answers like that.
Yes, thank you.
So did I hear that we're going to get a report or something that, Ms. Dustin?
Is that in here?
Are we going to get a quick report or something that identifies sustainable equipment?
Sure. I need to consult with the Harlem Chamber, but on the differences between last year and this year's budget.
Okay, thank you. Did I see your hand? Yes.
Yeah, just can you speak to the other financing sources? Are they all secured, or these are in the works? And is our 125 tied to success of these funds?
The other items in the budget have already been secured and expended. Oh, good. And a lot of them are in kind.
I'm sorry, a lot of them are
in kind.
In kind, okay. Any other questions?
I just want to follow up on my question. So whatever we have that is that meets the measure of sustainability and thereby mitigates the cost, I think we should get a list of that so we can see what we have that we're making good on. You understand what I'm saying? So is that possible that we can get a list of what those things are that?
Can I follow up with the board, or can Curtis follow up with the board through the Greater Harlem Chamber?
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I will.
You understand what I'm saying? If there's hardware or whatever that's sustainable, that's good to know, because that saves money and it means that we got a quality product. Mm-hmm. And so we should sort of brag about that.
I had a question about what kind of fiscal oversight is in place to ensure that these funds are being used in this way and appropriately.
Well, I don't know if you want to speak about the overall process that we have in place for SERFs in terms of applications. That right now.
You're talking about
the funds that we're giving them to ensure that they're being used appropriately.
Before we make a disbursement, we ensure that all the expenses that they're reported to us are accounted for. Mm-hmm. So you asked me a question about the others. Please report to us that they have been expended. The project has already passed. So before we make a disbursement, we will ensure that those expenditures happen through backup documentation,
receipts,
receipts, cancel checks, bank drafts, and things of that nature before we make a disbursement. And we also ensure that either the items that we're covering have been paid for, or we have an outstanding invoice for those.
And I'm wondering if there's if there are any constraints or about our funds and how they're used. I mean,
yes,
is there any specific
on these items?
All of these things are covered.
No, on the left-hand column it says
I see.
funds.
Thank you.
Are
Thank
limited
you.
to
Sorry, I missed that.
items.
Yes, I see that.
And it's a reimbursement. It's not an upfront payment.
All right. All right. Thank you. That answers my question.
And they'll be providing receipts.
Okay.
I want to make sure that does every one of the board members, have you seen the application that Harlem CDC uses in terms of SERPs?
Yes.
And if not, I can make sure that every one of you gets a copy of it. Okay.
Curtis, you're going to email everyone, right, the answer to the sustainability question. Perhaps they might speak to the fiscal oversight briefly.
Okay.
Why don't you attach the application as well, just so that you can make sure everybody has it to review. Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Just an observation. For how long the Harlem Week, the chamber have been receiving money from Harlem CDC? A long time, I imagine, right? And I believe that have you ever had a problem with them?
No.
So then I'm good with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussions, questions? All right, hearing none, I will now take a motion to approve.
Yep.
Is that a so moved?
Yeah, so
Okay. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. That passes. Well, thank you let's see, I think that's it, right?
You have one more thing?
Okay. Yes, okay. So next, Curtis is going to present the President's report. This item is being presented for information only, and we don't require a vote.
Madam Chair. Under tab 5, you will see enclosed the President's report covering the period of June 16th to Friday, August 25th. Any particular highlights in that particular report? I might just say that I had received a number of inquiries as to a particular space that's not actually controlled by us, but by the City of New York, and that, of course, is Mark 125. And that particular one, they have a group in there called Spaceworks. They are similar to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, trying to think of the WeWork type of. So Spaceworks is a similar type of entity, but for artisanal type uses. And that's going to be the tenant at the Mark 125 site.
Who are they?
Spaceworks.
I know, but who is this?
I do not know in terms of they are not a local group to Harlem.
Spaceworks.
Spaceworks.
Sounds like a jazz record. My son holding foot.
Are they going to the whole space?
They're going to be having the lower portion, and then they're looking about some co-locating type things.
But what are they doing in the space?
Some food. Artisanal type things. It's similar to, in other words, you know how WeWork is a co-locating workspace.
Artisanal?
Yes. So artisans, crafts makers, and so forth will have that space there.
Basically, it's for the arts.
Correct.
Thank you. It's a non-for-profit?
Yeah.
And who's running it again?
Spaceworks.
Spaceworks. Okay, Spaceworks. But what are they addressed?
That I can get that address for you.
And any related names that are associated with the organization? Who runs
Okay,
it?
so what we will do is we will get that information to the board. At least, Spaceworks, the general information.
Are they a local group?
No, as I mentioned earlier, no, they are not.
So where are they from, do you know?
No, I do not. But I will get that information to everyone off the record.
And then what's considered local,
Well,
uptown, downtown,
as little as
Harlem.
it's around the corner, but it's a little broader than that.
Yeah, no,
we
I
should
agree
get
with
some
you.
sense of where they're from. Is all I'm asking.
And so we'll provide that.
Yes.
We'll provide that to
Are
the
they from
board.
space? Well, that could be local.
Probably not, I would say.
In the galaxy.
In the galaxy.
So I'd like to, yes.
Originally, UMass was going to use that location, as I remember back a couple of years.
Yeah, once the empowerment zone was de-designated from the space, EDC has taken it over, and so they have released an RFP and got the end user Spaceworks.
There was an
Not
RFP
a
that was
CDC
issued.
project.
Right.
It's not a CDC project.
No, it's no, exactly. It was purely informational. That's what I was doing.
It's not our problem.
Okay.
Okay. Does that conclude your
That
report?
concludes my report.
I would like to just add that I saw here the list of the business seminars, and having attended one, I want to commend you very much and your team. These workshops are amazing, and they are well run and well attended, and I would really encourage everyone, if you had a chance, to take a look at the topics, because some of these topics are very good, and I saw the new one, the new list coming down, and it's very, forward thinking. So congratulations on that. I'm looking forward to the new round of workshops.
And I would also just encourage everyone, because we did also participate in one in East Harlem, hosted by Holly, that we will go anywhere within our catchment area. If you believe that the particular content and audience is there, we will travel.
Fantastic. Thank you. I will now take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.